Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything.
Craig, is that you?
Oh man, it's been a long time.
Wait.
3 weeks.
Is that you? Is it you?
Yeah, it is me.
It's you.
Me.
It's
I
me.
know.
It's me. It's
so,
you.
In this time, I have in this time between these podcasts, I have turned a year older. I'm
Whoa! It's been that's been a long 3 weeks.
I'm switching jobs. I'm gonna have a new job like on Monday.
Good Lord!
Yeah,
man.
I've been taking a couple weeks off. Taking a couple little mini trips. That's part of the reason why we haven't recorded in a while. Jeff and I have been just Jeff had spring break. I had my own little spring break in between jobs, which by the way I get paid for because parental leave in Washington. Woo!
Yes.
Thank you, everyone who doesn't have kids
Love
but
that.
still pays taxes for it. Thank you.
Taxes are good, actually. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to say that nice and loud for my neighbor across the street who replaced his "Don't Tread on Me" flag with his "Taxation is Theft" flag.
Ah, yes.
So I'm like,
all right.
you like those roads, don't you, buddy?
All right, so...
we're not going to go down that road? Is that what you're saying?
No, nope. This is Podcast Versus Everyone, episode number 120. I'm your host, Craig Powers. With me is my co-host, Jeff Newser.
That's
me.
me.
You don't remember what our voices sound like because it's been so long.
You sound older.
Yeah, a big reason why Jeff and I don't really care about spring football that much, especially when we can't go to the game and drink with each other.
Yeah.
The big thing for spring football, I think, is the quarterback battle this year because we don't know who's going to be quarterback, and we got a new guy, we got a grad transfer in, we got a returning guy who's barely played. We have a freshman who was the starter who has not played because of he's in trouble. He's suspended for DUI. We had another guy who hadn't played transfer out. So basically, it's down to those three. But in spring ball, it's only down to the two: Cameron Cooper and Jarrett Guarantano. I got to tell you, I don't think either of doesn't seem to jump out. Like it seems like they're still splitting reps quite a bit. They seem to have had similar stats in the scrimmages. I think Guarantano had a better first scrimmage. But again, it's like they're throwing 8 passes. So
yes,
I
mean, no decisions are getting made this spring, right? I mean, it's just, they're going to get lots of reps. It definitely helps them both.
And Jaden Delora is going to be back in the fall.
I was going to say. It helps them both right now. The Jaden Delora is not throwing any passes, right? So it's just it's really just the two of them, along with the freshman or early enrollee Xavier Ward, right? Mm-hmm. But nobody expects him to win the job, and it certainly sort of looks like that's the plan. He's clearly kind of the third guy at this point. And both, Cooper and Guarantano have been fine. The funny part has been watching Tennessee fans slide into Theo's mentions every time he talks about Guarantano looking pretty good.
Man, they hate that guy.
They really do, man. They are like, I'll never understand. Craig, it just means more in the SEC. You
have to follow a kid to another,
right?
To another position. Like it's
like I can't think of one kid.
Like he's gone. He's out of your hair. If you really hated him that much, you don't have to worry about him anymore. But now you have to follow him to another school and be like,
exactly,
fuck you, man. Like,
just wait. That's what he does. He plays good in practice, and then you put him in a game, and he's a big choker. It's like, why do you? I cannot think of one player who has left Wazoo that I thought, you know what I want to do? I want to go wherever he went and drag that kid. Like,
right.
Like, what goes through your mind? Now, there have been guys that have left where I've thought, I want to see how, like, Malachi Flynn is a great example of a guy who left, and I was like, I'm going to try and watch him whenever I can. Like, I'm invested in, hoping that he does well. Like, there are guys who leave, and I want him to do well. I cannot think of one kid where I've thought, and especially a kid who, by all accounts, is a nice kid. Like, they don't say anything bad about him as a person. They're not like, he was a real jerk. His teammates hated him. He, screwed the team by flunking out of school. None of that stuff. It's just that he just wasn't good enough for whatever their outsized expectations were. I'm just like, y'all are weird, man.
Wait,
weird down
Tennessee fans have outsized expectations? Really?
Yeah, right. That's the first I've heard of this.
Yeah, and imagine if, like, last year every time Oklahoma State, like, mentioned Tay Martin, you were like, well, he had some good games, and then some games he would kind of disappear, and like, oh my god, like, you guys just wait. Oh, he was good this game, and you just wait. Like,
just wait. It's so weird. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. It's, and honestly, I mean, this is probably not the right forum to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The older I get, the harder time I have being just overly critical and overly I guess critical is just the right word. Like overly invested in what these people are doing, because I'm just like, they are half my age, man. Like, I'm just like, these are damn children, and I know they're men by law, but more like, it's just like, sometimes I just have such a hard time with the way other people sort of treat athletes and talk about them. And I've been guilty of it too, so I'm not going to pretend I haven't, but I'm like, the older I get, the more years that go by, the more I'm just like, before I press send on that tweet, I'm like, what am I doing here?
Well, as I've been reminded of multiple times as we are listening to parenting books on behavior and discipline and things like that, and how to deal with crazy kids.
Do you have one of those?
Yeah, maybe. But I've heard it multiple times. Like, your brain is not fully formed until you're like 25. So,
yep.
If you want to go by like brain science, you could say they're still kids.
They basically are. They act like children.
If you think about what we were like when we were 21, like, it was, your priorities are completely different. Your kind of like belief in self, or I guess it's this belief in infallibility of yourself, and like,
oh yeah,
you're still not typically not as aware of the things going on around you and things like that, or hyper aware because you've just learned about something and you are suddenly an expert in it. That's but yeah. So it's so, I don't know. It sucks, but back to the actual quarterback battle. It's kind of like, how do you even know? Because they have the guy that started last year isn't playing. So, and it seems like he's going to come back.
He'll be in the mix in the fall.
Yeah, but it seems like he's not going to play in spring. Rolovich has just said he's suspended indefinitely over and over again. But the interesting thing is they might be bringing in another QB, like another grad transfer QB. Speaking of Tennessee.
I was going to say, speaking of Tennessee, oddly enough. Oh, man. I don't know. I had never heard of this guy until today. And,
well,
you'll probably tell on yourself, too.
You didn't watch, like, Michigan's 5 games this year and see that he started 6 games and he started 5 of them?
I'm like, I have never heard of this guy. Oh, wait, there's a former 4-star quarterback looking to transfer and maybe wants to come here? That's interesting.
I will say, former 4-star is interesting, of course. His numbers, not very, like, not setting the world on fire at all. Like, he's like...
I'm sorry. I'm not sure I want a transfer from Michigan, if I'm just being honest. Not a quarterback. Not these days. Like Jim Harbaugh does not. He does not know how to pick them these days.
Yeah, there's no. We're not getting Andrew Luck over here.
No.
Yeah, so he is he's 4 touchdowns, 4 picks in 5 games, barely over 50%. Really, not great like rushing numbers either, which could be it's product of the offense as well too. But and apparently he's going to decide on Saturday night, so he's going to watch our spring games and then decide. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure he's going to be swayed by whatever he sees on Pac-12 networks. So
yeah, he's probably going to realize he can't actually watch it.
Yeah, he is though. So if we are going to talk about the merits here, he is a large human. He's a big kid, man. He is 6'5", 250. Like he is a large dude. Can apparently throw the ball over their mountains. And that's my scouting report, Craig.
Can sit on his knees at the 50-yard line and throw it through the goalpost. You know, that's the classic one.
I'm sure he can.
Yeah, so he didn't play much in 2018 or 2019, and he was their starter in 2020. So he's a still technically a junior. So he wouldn't. I guess it's a grad transfer. It might just be a
it is
transfer.
It's being reported as a grad transfer. He says he's working on finishing his degree. Not that it actually matters anymore, because everybody's going to get one free transfer anyway, starting next year. So that'll pass this summer. It'll go in for next year. So it'll be fine. He'll be good. It doesn't really matter if he graduates or not, but good on him for graduating in 3 years from Michigan. So that's very cool. And if we get him, great. I'm not sure why he would want to do this, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's the part where I'm like, I'm a little baffled. If I'm a former 4-star kid and I'm looking for a landing spot, unless the shine has really just worn off him that much, but if Tennessee wants you, and we just got done making fun of Tennessee, but it's the SEC. It's certainly a bigger brand name program than Wazoo. So maybe I don't know. It's sort of an odd. It's sort of an odd thing. Look, my money is on him going to Tennessee just because of what we just said. Because it just doesn't kind of make sense, given our quarterback situation. I mean, obviously, Guarantano's only going to be around for this year. But, so that's one guy in his way to potentially starting this year. And then you look at the year after that, him and Cooper are the same age, basically. And then you've got a guy who started, a bunch of games, in the COVID year, who's still like a freshman. And then you've got another quarterback it's just like you got another true freshman quarterback on the roster who enrolled just like it doesn't make a lot of sense. And also there was a report that he was going to Tennessee, and then he was like, wait, no, I haven't decided yet, which to me says somebody just jumped the gun on announcing it, and he wanted to do his little hat dance. So that's my guess. That's my guess on how all this plays out. That he's already committed to Tennessee. He's already going to Tennessee, and he just wants to have his hat dance, which God love him, more power to him. Have your hat dance, but. Still, I guess it's good that, Rolovich was, in the final 2 for a guy like this if he doesn't end up coming. So I guess that's good.
Yeah, and obviously they've been looking at the transfer market and
hitting it hard.
And so Yeah, I mean, good. It's basically spring practice. It's nice that the team has a spring practice this year. The defense has been great. Sometimes the offense has been great. Sometimes the defense has been bad. Sometimes the offense has been bad. Sometimes we don't know if the defense is being bad or the offense is being good. It's really hard to tell. But really, truthfully, we don't have a reporter at the practices. We do have a photographer. You can see his shots.
Jack's been there a bit. But look, I mean, Theo's been there too, and it's just like, I don't know, man. You and I are on the same page on this, right? Like we just have a really tough time getting into spring practice. Just that as something that is actually like meaningful for analysis.
Yeah, I mean, like you said on our last episode, like they're just, it's like, they're trying stuff, they're trying things out. But yeah. Obviously, it's nearly through. It's been a whirlwind one, really quick one. Real bummer
Super
that we
quick.
can't go to the game. Obviously, obviously some professional teams, Sounders and Mariners and the Reign, have been able to have attendance, but there haven't been any approvals for any non-professional teams or non-major league teams. So, like, even I don't think the Rainiers have figured out, like, attendance and things like that. It didn't help that Whitman County got bumped down to Phase 2 along with my county, Pierce County.
That didn't stop you from going to the Reign the other night.
It did not. But they did. It was like you had to, I think because it was Phase 2, they're like, you have to have your mask on, even though they have us like massively spaced out. They're like, You have to have your mask on if you're not actively drinking or eating. And so my daughter was just kind of holding the bag of popcorn and yelling and just occasionally grabbing a piece of popcorn, putting it in her mouth, and we got scolded for that.
You did?
So, yeah, we did. And an usher came down and told us, a mask's on, whether you're okay. It's okay, she's 3.
I don't think she's a threat.
Yeah.
Sounders were like that too. They were not super overly watchdoggish with the mask. But almost everybody was sort of behaving well, and we were all very spread out. So
yeah, we were very spread out at the Reign. I had the Summit Club tickets, and that was kind of a bummer. The Summit Club, the like actual area, was not open. And then they just had like Summit Club beers at a couple of the concession stands. So
I mean, that's what really matters.
I mean, the beer selection was a tiny fraction of what it normally is. And I also, when you have a kid, like, it's nice to spend some time up and sit on the tables and stuff like that.
That's 100% true. Get some snacks.
Yeah, they didn't have the snacks, so we had to buy the popcorn. We had to buy a big old box. She wanted the pretzels. That's always her favorite things, pretzels.
Yeah, although that makes sense because up there, like, the pretzel and the popcorn, they put them in a giant bowl. Mm-hmm. So it's like, here, you guys scoop it out into your little tray, which in the before times was considered an okay thing.
Well, is there, or if you're at the Seven Seas area, they had one of those things where you, like, turn the knob and they come out. So maybe that's a little, but, everyone's got to touch it, all that.
Right.
But, yeah, so it definitely makes sense that they're not doing the snacks. But I will say, because they had fewer concession stands open, which, of course, they would because there's less people there, and you did end up with some lines at the concession stands, which kind of defeat the purpose of everything.
Yes.
Yeah, so... But so that was an interesting experience, but we can't have that experience at the spring game. I'm sure that at this point, I'm pretty sure we'll have attendance. Like probably pretty.
I'd be shocked.
Significant attendance at the actual football game in the fall, because obviously a lot of people are getting vaccinated. I got my second shot today. I know you've already had your second shot.
Yeah, buddy. I am 2 weeks past my second shot.
Oh, so
I'm invincible.
You're like the Thanos gif when he.
I'm gonna go run naked through the streets.
Yeah, like the Thanos gift when he puts the final Infinity Stone in, and
that's me,
and he feels the power.
That is me.
But yeah, so I was holding out hope that they would have the spring game with people at it. I had my hotel booked, and then but I had, by Saturday I was like, this is not going to happen. I canceled it just so I wouldn't forget to cancel it.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Because I have actually before booked two hotels for a football game in Pullman and not realized I did that. And I had I had one of them call me at like 2 a.m. and be like, "Are you showing up tonight?" And I was like, "Oh no!" And I'm like, "Is there any way they could refund it?" And they're like, "No." So I was like, "Damn, that's what I get for like booking so far in advance and then forgetting that I had booked a hotel." Like,
that's the worst.
So that's why I was like,
the worst.
I gotta cancel this hotel because I don't want to get
Good
in
plan.
that situation again.
Good plan.
But yeah, so we'll have it on Pac-12 Network. If it's like previous iterations, they'll only show about an hour of it, and then they won't show the rest. Obviously, the game usually takes a little over 2 hours, but often there's a bunch of spring games on at once, and the network is got to show them all, and usually it's WSU's that gets trimmed down to an hour. So we'll see how it goes. See how much of it we get to see. I'm sure I'll watch it.
Yeah, I'll watch. It's not about the same time as the Sounders playing LAFC, so I'll probably sit down, have a beer, watch the spring game for a little while, and then watch Sounders for a little while, and it's, I don't know, man. My philosophy on spring games is, just enjoy the football fun, take it for what it is. It just
enjoy the fun plays that happen.
Yeah, it's just a little taste of football. It'll be cool to see it'll be cool to see Guarantano. I've never seen him before. It'll be cool to see Cooper throw a ball and see if he's gotten any better. Because sometimes it kind of does, give you some
Cooper
insights into what's coming.
Who was the all-time quarterback at the last time WSU had spring game?
Oh my gosh, poor guy. Yeah, he's like throwing interception after interception after interception, playing both sides. But speaking of that game, Anthony Gordon was lights out in that game, and we were just like, is this for real? And then it turned out, yes, this was for real, right? So, there's that. There's interesting storylines. I mean, we've got our, annual, could this be the breakout star guy, and the walk-on wide receiver whose name completely escapes me now. He's up transferred from Central, right? I think, and I feel like such an ass right now for not remembering his name. So, Drake, am I on the right track on that? Anyway, that's how
I'm not.
I know
jumping.
You're not even trying. Thank you. But it's just fun. It is interesting to see. I mean, look, 2 years ago, I was convinced that Cassidy Woods was going to be, the next superstar, right? I mean, this stuff happens. It's in the spring, and they try out lots of stuff. They do a lot of different things, and so I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is, which is just like a little glimpse into the team's progress, knowing that a lot can change between now and next fall. I'm interested to see some of the transfers, who have come in, and some of the guys who came in, the linebacker from TCU. I'm forgetting all these people's names, so I feel like a real dork right now.
Drake Owen is the wide receiver.
Drake Owen, yes. Okay,
right.
See, I got that part right. Wilson, right? Ben Wilson, the linebacker from TCU. Interested in seeing him. And somebody's probably going to leave a comment on this that says he's actually injured right now, because I haven't followed any practice reports. But
yeah.
Anyway, interested to see some of those new guys, and interested to see Max Borghi carry a football. Like, that's always good. So
they must
think
highly of Ben Wilson just because they let him have number 9. It's a good number.
It is a good number. Didn't work out too well for McDougal, but
yeah, but that's why it's free. That's why number 9 is free. So I don't know. Anything else you got about spring
That's
ball?
it, dude. Looking forward to watching it. I will have thoughts next week after we see the game.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. It'll give us something to
should be
talk
fun.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. I think let's just take, just so we get a break, and we'll take an early break, and then we'll talk hoops, which we're much more excited to talk about. Let's be honest.
Yeah. And we're back.
We're back.
You didn't give me the little
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were just mixing that stuff in.
No,
yourself
I
these
will.
days.
I will. I'll do that. But I was kind of looking forward to the Craig version.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you wanted me to do your job for you. I didn't know.
Oh, I see how it is.
Yeah. So, what are you drinking?
So you made reference earlier to the reason why we haven't recorded in like 3 weeks. So this all kicked off with me. I actually got to take almost. It was kind of weird. I actually got to take almost 2 spring breaks. So like I almost had 2 weeks off. You've had 2 weeks off. Like we've just been like, it's basically been like summer vacation around here. So Sarah and the kids had spring break the week before my spring break. So Sarah booked a trip to Leavenworth, not realizing that my spring break was actually the next week. And so I put in for 3 personal days and miraculously got approved for those.
Yeah, I can't believe you got those approved.
I couldn't either. I was fully expecting that Sarah was going to be taking the kids to Leavenworth by herself. Or we were going to be taking 2 cars and I was going to be staying for like 1 or 2 days and then coming back. But it was a Tuesday through Thursday. So it was like kind of in the middle of the week, which are kind of the best days to get subs. Mondays and Fridays tend to be a little, for obvious reasons, tend to be a little more, a little tougher to get. So we went to Leavenworth. So that all ties into the beer I am drinking. I have a couple of beers here from the Icicle Brewing Company in Leavenworth, which some of these beers I passed along to you for your birthday.
Yes, thank you.
So I am having the Peak Seeker West Coast IPA right now, which is it's going to shock you to find out it's a West Coast IPA. It's kind of, it's got, it's that kind of classic style. So, it's extra bitter and, kind of piney and, very tasty, very good. I'm not a huge fan of most of Icicle's, because we go over to Leavenworth at least once or twice a year. It's kind of like, it's Sarah's little happy place. She loves going there. So we go there once or twice a year. And I'm not generally a huge fan of most of their flagship beers. But the Peak Seeker's good. And then of course I've got, waiting in the wings here. I've got the, Dark Persuasion German Chocolate Cake Ale, for my second beer tonight. So yeah, it's Icicle Brewing Night. It's Leavenworth Brewing Night, here in the Nooser household.
Nice. Yeah. I drank the Peak Seeker you dropped off, and then the Enchantments. I thought it's a very good West Coast IPA. I've been just so desperate for clean IPAs lately. Like I'm jumping all over them. And so they're just like super refreshing to have now. The Enchantments is a good hazy IPA, but I thought the Peak Seeker was good. I do love Dark Persuasion just because of at like 6%, the amount of like flavor they pack into that thing is impressive. It definitely it has like a German chocolate cake vibe that usually you need to make like a 12% sweet stout to get. So it's very well done. It's very decadent for that alcohol content for sure.
I was super happy that they were selling them in 12-ounce cans because it's so rich. Yeah. And it's like, I love the flavor, but the last time I was in Leavenworth, I ordered one and it was kind of busy. And they were like, I was like, can I get a 10-ounce pour of the, the Dark Persuasion? And they were like, no. And I was like, what? And they're like, we're so busy, you can only have a pint. And I'm like, okay. And I got about halfway through it and I was like, oh man, it's like so much. It's like so, and it's good. It tastes great. But it's like I can do about like 10 to 12 ounces, and that's about as far as I can get. They did have their darkest persuasion, which is their bourbon barrel aged dark persuasion. They did have bottles of them that they were opening and pouring if you drank it in the tap room, and I couldn't stick around the tap room to have it. I tried to get them to sell me a bottle, and they wouldn't do it. So I was apparently not convincing enough.
There's a very good rating on Untappd, especially because it's 9.5%. Usually, you'll see those beers be more like 12% or 14%. You know, so that's cool. That would have been nice for you to try.
Yeah, I'll have to keep my eye out. They said that you can buy them online when they get released, and so I'm like, okay, I'll have to keep my eye out for that. I'll have to keep my eye out for that next year and try to figure out a way to get those. But I do, like I said, their flagship beers, I feel like outside of the Dark Persuasion are just kind of so-so. But their seasonals and their one-offs, I've been impressed with. So, yeah, good deal. What are you drinking, dude?
I'm drinking, usually I bust out the fancy, the hard to get, the, stuff like that. But today I'm just, a beer I've been like really into in the last couple of weeks. They had it on draft, and I think I've had it in the past. I'm not sure. Like, maybe just passed over it because it's not a style I always go for that often anymore. But so we've been able to go to Beer Star a couple times recently. They're doing a great job with their outdoor seating.
Oh, yeah, they've got a great setup out there.
Yeah, and, the weather's been nice for the last couple of weeks, and so we've been trying that out, finally getting back there. So Amanda had gotten the other day, the first trip, she had gotten the Stoop Robust Porter, and a Robust Porter is different than a regular porter in that it's heavier alcohol. It's usually 6% versus like a 4%. It's got a lot more, I think porter as a style typically very very mild style of beer. Despite it being dark, but when you put the Robust Porter, everything's kind of amped up. So she had gotten Stoop Robust Porter, and I tried some of hers. It's fine. We share lots of viruses. It's okay if we share things. But I tried some of hers, and so obviously what I'm drinking is Stoop Robust Porter, whatever. It reminds me a lot of one of my all-time favorite beers, and that is Hill Farmstead Everett, which is a Robust Porter itself. And it has a lot of the same notes, a lot of kind of coffee, a little bit of sweetness. It's just very well, done. It's not overly intense like a bigger beer might be. It's not overly sweet. It's not. The body is kind of more medium to medium light instead of the light body of a normal porter or the heavy body of an imperial porter. It's just well done, and I really like it. So I haven't had Hill Farmstead Everett in a couple years, but it definitely that's immediately what I thought is this tastes like Hill Farmstead Everett, and that is the highest of praise for me. Hill Farmstead is my favorite brewery, and when I was in Vermont, Everett was one of my favorite beers. And so I think Stoop has just done an awesome job for that with this Robust Porter. And the best thing is it's not that hard to find if you live in Western Washington. Go to your, whatever store that's around you that sells a lot of beer. And if they carry Stoop cans, that's one of Stoop's flagship beers that they put canned now.
Nice.
So check it out. It's just such a well done beer. Stoop's a very good brewery. They don't do a lot of hype styles, so they don't get as much credit. I think if you want clean IPAs, they make some great clean IPAs and stuff. But Stoop Robust Porter, super stoked about it. It's probably going to start being. Amanda loves it too. It's probably going to be a pretty regular beer in our fridge, especially as the weather cools back down, as it always does.
Yeah.
In our region.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm hyped on it. Usually I'm grabbing something from the cellar, but I was so excited about this beer. It's something, and I always feel bad that a lot of the beers I drink Sorry, you can't go find it. Like, it's not going to happen. But this one you can. You can go find this beer. And it is excellent. It is well done. It is what a robust porter should taste like. So good job, Stoop. If you're definitely not listening, but if you are, good job. Yeah. So yeah, that was beer. But now basketball. So if anyone who might remember, last month when we had John Anderschek on, he kind of hit. He kind of hinted
so long ago.
He hinted that he would come back to talk to us about the finalized roster in like June or July.
Yeah.
And because we were thinking, they were kind of set with the Tyrell Roberts transfer and then possibly Miles Rice coming in as a recruit, but they were not set. And
no.
what came in first, and this is weeks ago at this point, but still a very exciting addition, to basically replace Isaac Bonton's production and offensively potentially more efficient. Maybe not the level of defense that Bonton provides, but still the potential for that. But definitely a more efficient potential for more efficiency, and that's Michael Flowers, and transferred from South Alabama. One thing I was very worried about, Jeff, with Bonton leaving, because even before this, it seemed like he was going to leave. They did the senior day for him and everything.
Yeah,
it seemed like, but it was like, are we really going to have to rely on a couple guys like improving their offensive game like Noah Williams did last year? Like we were going to have to do that. Like it was going to be like, okay, we need at least one, probably two guys to make a Noah Williams type jump offensively to replace, to be able to get the scoring. And, you thought about like Yakimovsky and then you thought, with Roberts coming in at that point we knew, so, he'll provide some scoring, but having Flowers in, you have that lead, that go-to guy, and as we talked about, like, you just need as many offensive weapons on the floor as possible to make it hard for the defense.
Yes. Yep. Michael Flowers, so when Bonton was leaving, and before Flowers came in, you just kind of looked at the roster and you went, okay, well, who's going to play point, or how are they going to deal with the point guards? Like, who's going to initiate the offense? And you saw last year they got, real creative, right? They got real creative about how they were going to initiate the offense, who was going to do that. Andre Yakimovsky, right, became essentially the bring it up, initiate the offense guy. I mean, he had a double-digit assist game. Like, he clearly could do that, but it was like it took a little bit of creative coaching, right, to get to that. Your ideal is to have a guy who actually is a point guard, initiating the offense. And so with Bonton leaving, you replace him with a guy who is a point guard in Michael Flowers. He is a point guard. He wants to be a point guard. His ability to handle the ball and distribute. I mean, he's an excellent scorer, right? He's definitely known for being a scorer, but he definitely fancies himself a point guard. One of the reasons why, so before he was at South Alabama, he was at Western Michigan, right? Am I right? Hold on.
You're right.
Check. Yes. Yeah, Western Michigan.
That's
okay.
right.
I knew it was one of those directional Michigans. One of the reasons why he left was because they had played him off the ball and they wanted him to be a shooting guard. And he was like, no, I'm a point guard. And so he transferred, and, had a great year at South Alabama, obviously, hyper efficient score, 108 offensive rating on 30% usage or 29% usage is really, 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 really good. Even against, lesser competition, basically evenly split between twos and threes, gets to the line enough, really good at finishing around the basket when he does take a shot around the basket, 83% free throw shooter, 37% 3-point shooter, like on 200
high
threes,
volume.
like
on very high volume.
Like this is a guy who steps in and is basically Bonton, but I think the key number the key number. He's a little lower on the assist rate, but he's also I shouldn't say that. He's not way lower on the turnover rate, but he's lower on the turnover rate too. So it's a guy who, not having watched him a whole bunch, I can say the numbers suggest that he's basically a little more secure with the ball. Like, he's not going to make the risky pass to get the assist, but he's also not going to make the risky pass that might, end up in a turnover. And for a team that, obviously, I think it's fairly obvious that figuring out how to bring down the turnovers is kind of one of the top goals. This offseason heading into next year, having him handling the ball a whole bunch is a good thing. And when I look at like Bart Torvik, I'm sure we'll talk more about Bart tonight, but BartTorvik.com, when I look at their top, what he's got as the top 10 projected usage guys, he's actually got Flowers behind Noah Williams in terms of usage. I don't think that's going to be the case.
No,
I think it's going to be flip-flopped. I think Flowers is going to be the lead guy. I think Noah still might be, in the 25% range, 24% range, somewhere in there. But I think Flowers is going to be the undisputed lead guy. I think he's not going to be 29, 30% like he was at South Alabama or when he was at Western Michigan, but I think he'll definitely be probably like 27%, and content to use, some of the weapons that he'll have around him. And there are, as we know, a lot of them. So it's a great addition, man. This is going to go down as one of the best transfer additions of the offseason. I really believe that. When they looked like nationally, I think there was a guy who did a national thing and ranked all the transfers, and man, he ranked like Flowers at like 30th or something like that. And I was like, when you make this at the end of next year, he's going to be a top 10 transfer guy. It's like I 100% absolutely believe that he's going to make that big of an impact for Wazoo.
Yeah, I mean, it was very exciting. It was kind of out of nowhere for us. I wasn't even thinking they were going to add a guy like this, but it just obviously
it fits perfect.
Leaving, it fits perfectly. I mean, you basically just slid in a replacement Bonton with who could potentially be just a more efficient scorer and
let's just say it. He might be better.
Yeah, he might be better.
Let's just say
Bonton,
it.
Yeah. Maybe,
like he might be better. And I am. I mean, everybody knows I am the head of the Bonton cheerleader club. I wanted him back. Absolutely wanted him back. But I'm also looking at Michael Flowers going, I mean, there's a pretty good chance that this is that he's going to give you more this year than what Bonton would have given you. Maybe he doesn't give you the same kind of attitude. Maybe he doesn't give you the same kind of defense. I don't know that because I don't know the kid. And I know the things that Bonton brought to the table that were endearing, right? So, he's probably not going to be as fun. That was my main, when I wrote my thing, like that was my main selling. But like Bonton's just like, he's just fun. He plays with a flair, and that's cool. But this guy might give you, more production in the end than what Bonton, might have given you. Certainly on a little more consistency, which I think will make a lot of our fans, happy. So, yeah, I mean, he might. This guy might be. We really might have landed an all Pac-10. Good God, Pac-12.
What year?
Jeez, what year are we in? Pac-12 all first team guy. Like I really think that's the quality of guy that we got here.
Yeah, that's exciting. And then of course, like they weren't done with the transfers.
No.
Obviously, WSU was after a guy that played at Eastern last year and possibly two. So WSU ended up losing out on Tanner Groves and his brother Jacob to Oklahoma, which you can't really blame them for taking that one. But they were able to pull another great player from Eastern, who was committed to transfer to Arizona with Sean Miller.
Yeah,
and then it didn't seem like Tommy Lloyd didn't want him. or he was lower on Tommy Lloyd's list. So he ends up coming to Pullman now, Kim Aiken Jr. And so this guy is, while Flowers is coming in to fill an offensive void, Aiken is just, I'll say this first. So I remember hearing like at one of the talks at one of the conferences I was at once, where someone said like, what you should do in life is just, instead of always trying to improve your weaknesses, you should just improve your strengths and just like be really, really good at things. And Kim Aiken coming is improving WSU's strength defensively and rebounding, and anything that WSU was good at last year, Aiken is going to make it better, and that's pretty exciting.
We might actually give up 0 points next year, Craig. We might not give up any baskets now. No, Aiken's amazing. So you take the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year. The dude is a ridiculous rebounder. If people remember what CJ Ellaby was like year before last, I don't know, what year are we in? But when CJ Ellaby's sophomore year, when he led the team in rebounding, Aiken's going to be somewhat like that. Like he's going to fly in, he's going to grab rebounds. He can do it on both ends, defensive and offensive rebounding, which, complements what we do. We're already a really good rebounding team. We were top 100 in terms of rebounding percentage on both ends of the floor. I would not be shocked if we end up like top 25 on like both ends of the floor now. When adding Aiken. He's a versatile defender. He'll block some shots. And he's no slouch on offense either. And I think that kind of gets lost. Like, he's not a bad offensive player. He's a good offensive player. He's not a high volume guy, but he can definitely finish around the basket, which, as we know, is, was a bugaboo for this team. He never turns it over. Almost never turns it over. And he can hit the occasional three. Now, we need, ideally, you'd want him to get a little stronger from three, heading into this year.
More 35% versus 30%.
Yeah, he's been he was like a 33% guy his first 2 years at Eastern. He dipped down to 31 this year. You'd really like him to be like a 36, 37 guy, to be really useful, especially as a low volume 3-point shooter where it's really just catch and shoot opportunities. So you'd like him to be around there, but still, this guy's going to start. And we love, Andrei Yakimovsky. We love DJ Rodman. This guy's almost I'd be shocked if this guy's not starting at the 3, right? And and you got a front line of Deshaun Jackson, F.A. Abagidi, and Kim Aiken.
There's no one scoring. No one's scoring at the rim against that.
Good Lord!
And then they're grabbing
the 2-point percentage wasn't
good
enough
every
already.
Miss. Yeah, they're grabbing every miss, and no one's scoring at the rim.
Yeah,
it also it helps when you can have that strong of a defensive back. You can afford to have guys like Flowers and Roberts who are smaller defenders who can kind of gamble for steals. They can be more gambling. They can gamble more. They can take chances up top, because if they get burned, you have to face F. Abagidi, and you have to face Kim Aiken Jr. at the rim, and you have to face Deshaun Jackson at the rim. You have to face Vova Markovetsky at the rim. You're going to run into a wall, and then plus your other guard is Noah Williams, who could play the 3 who could guard, the 3, the 1 to 3. So it's you can afford to have that other guard be a smaller guy who's in there mostly for offense. But, both Roberts and Flowers are steal guys. They're guys that can create turnovers. So it's not like they don't bring anything on defense, but it's when you have such a stout back line, you can afford to do more with the offense. And that's because even they could have Flowers and Roberts on the floor at the same time, and you still, if you got those guys in the back, or you could put Noah at the 3, and it's so exciting to think about. We already talked about before, when Bonton wasn't coming back and we thought maybe Kuntz was still here, already it was tough with the lineup. This is still tough with the lineup. I mean, you could say like Aiken is a Kuntz replacement. They're a little bit different player. They both are very 3 heavy. Right. They're both going to shoot. Kuntz was a better 3-point shooter last year. But Aiken's better around the rim, more athletic player, and definitely a better defensive player. So he's an exciting addition. If you look at what does this mean, interesting on Bart Torvik, difference from him from KenPom is because we've talked about it before. He just doesn't give a fuck about like being accurate or like he's just trying stuff out.
I mean, he does. He wants to be accurate.
I mean, he wants to be accurate, but he doesn't. He doesn't care about. It doesn't mean to be as
put
like
his experimental shit out there.
Yeah, so he does like a rolling projection, and so his projection changes by honestly like every few hours because he adds in the transfers and adds in when guys say their super seniors are coming back, things like that.
Yep.
So WSU, before Flowers was added and after Kuntz had left, they were sitting in the 80s on the projection for next year. Add Flowers, they jumped into the 50s. They after other people added players, whatever, they were back around 63 on the morning that they added Kim Aiken Jr. And now that bumped them up to 42. Now they're down to 44. This because Arizona State passed them because Kamani Lawrence said he's going to come back. So that's just how fluid these things are. But WC's sitting at number 44 in his projection. So this is similar to like KenPom's older system before he went with adjusted efficiency measure as his ranking. It uses a Pythagorean ranking, but yeah, it's so. But you can believe that if WSU is a top 50 team on Bart's projection, they're probably going to be a top 50 team on KenPom's projection, which is really exciting. One, because that just automatically puts you in the conversation of a team that's has the quality to challenge for an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Yep. Which is what we want, right? That's what we want.
Yep.
But the funny thing also in Bart's projection, I think because Tyrell Roberts was a Division II player, he doesn't show up and he also skipped a year. He doesn't show up in any of the databases that Bart uses to populate his website. So Tyrell Roberts is not even on there, and he's definitely going to be in the rotation. Like you can bank on that. And so like they didn't bring in a guy that can shoot threes like that to not put him on the floor. I guarantee.
Oh no, he'll play. Yeah. He's definitely gonna play.
Yeah. So they're missing a scorer in the rotation, but still, they're at 44 right now. That puts you at large, and I'm working on a story on this, but Kyle Smith generally outperforms his preseason projection on KenPom and on Bart's site. Not every year, but most years he does, and most years he does it by quite a bit. If you just think about last year, I think WC was around 150 to start the year. Might have been 164 or something like that. I'm just going off the top of my head. I could just give the exact number. I don't know why I'm doing this. So they started out 137. And then they finished the season at 78. The year before they start that was the 164 that was in my head. So last year they started 164 and then they finish at 127. And so those are the 2 years he's outperformed massively the projection on KenPom in his 2 years. San Francisco in 2019, 136 was the projection. 67 is where they ended up. The year before, this is the one bad. He had they started 116, he ended at 158. So that wasn't the best. But the year before that, they started at 262, ended at 111. So he on the aggregate and most often he had his teams outperform the expectation. And so if you want to get overly excited, and I'm pretty sure John would tell us to pump the brakes, but like WSU is,
he would definitely tell us to pump the brakes.
Yeah, but WSU is coming into this next season already, and they're not. This roster isn't done. We don't know what it's going to look like. There could be something else added. I think there's almost certainly going to be something subtracted. But it's as it's now, it's a roster that can contend in the Pac-12, be in the top half of the Pac-12, and contend for an NCAA tournament at large bid. And but if they outperform that expectation, then you have a team that can be like solidly in the tournament. You have a team that could win, 10 to 12, 11, 12, 13 games in the Pac-12. Which it's not crazy for teams to jump like that. Obviously we saw it under Tony and it's not crazy and just how good this defense is going to be next year. They just need to be a little better on offense, which with the roster, with the guys they've added, it's definitely a possibility. And just we have so many freshmen, and like freshman to sophomore, we say it over and over again, that's the biggest offensive jump for guys. So if those guys just make like standard offensive jumps, like this is going to be a better offense. Like if FA is better at finishing around the rim, and FA is better at shooting threes. If Deshaun is better at finishing around the rim, if he adds to that 17-footer he started showing at the end of the year. Yakumovsky, if he's a better shooter, if he finishes around the rim a little bit, like just any finishing around the rim for him would be great. Like, we said he was in the 20%, for last year. So, you just have a bunch of guys, and then you're bringing in guys that are proven scorers, so you're not relying completely on that improvement, but you get that improvement. You have DJ Rodman, who started to improve offensively towards the end of the season. I don't see this team, remaining still like the low level of offense that they were last year.
They won't. They won't.
You can very easily like envision them jumping into the top 100 offensively. And if they do that, and then they still a top 25, potentially top 20 defense, 15 defense with what they have coming back. If they're a top 25 defense and they can pop into the top 100 offensively, they're going to be right there to be an NCAA tournament team. As long as, obviously it depends how the winds shake out and all that. But right now, this is super exciting stuff. And the roster they have, exciting. I can't wait for the season to start. It's super fun.
One big thing that the team has going for it is that the Pac-12 is going to be looked at very differently next year.
Yes.
Compared to this year. So because of the Pac-12's run this year, and we joke about how bowl games don't mean anything, postseason doesn't mean anything. But even if maybe it doesn't mean anything, in reality, it definitely means something in terms of perception. And so, UCLA, whether or not Johnny Juzang comes back, and he declared for the draft and is doing the, without hiring an agent thing, but whether or not he comes back, UCLA is going to be like a top 10-ish team.
Yeah, I think they're like third or second in Bart's projection right now.
Yeah. So they're going to be a top 10-ish team just in terms of like AP ranking, which is what, like as much as you and I rely on, Ken Pom and Bart Torvik and all that stuff, the NCAA committee relies on essentially AP polls to know who is good, right? And so when you start the year, and we've seen this in football, right? Like when you start the year, where people think you're good before the year, it makes a huge difference, makes a massive difference. And it's also the flip side is true, right? When you start the year with people thinking you're bad, just as a group, it's very, very hard to break that perception. And so the Pac-12 is going to have perception next year that it is a strong, conference unless something like disastrous happens in the non-conference schedule, which of course is always possible. But there is going to be a perception the Pac-12 is a good ass conference. Okay, great. So now Wazoo comes in. Let's say they get a win against UCLA or they get a win against Arizona or USC or whatever. Like all of a sudden that carries a different weight now than it did, this past season. So, starting from a position of the conference is good makes a massive difference. I mean, the Big Ten benefited from that this year, right? Where, we started from an assumption that the Big Ten was good and, look at how tough the Big Ten is and the Big Ten's so great and the Big Ten's so tough. And then of course the Big Ten, flops in the tournament, but at that point they had already gotten, 8, 9 teams in the tournament, whatever it was, right? So, the Pac-12 is going to benefit from this. So WSU is going to benefit from that. And then the other thing is, again, starting, in a place where you're already in the 40s and people already think, okay, you've got this potential. I mean, listen, if you're heading for the NCAA tournament, if you finish the season ranked in the 40s, that's right where you want to be seriously contending for an NCAA berth. Now that's bubble territory, but it is, NCAA territory. And if you can do what Craig said, which is improve on this and move like into the 30s, it's pretty rare that a team in the 30s doesn't make it into the tournament. Now, it does happen. This year there were 3 teams that were in Ken Pom 30s that didn't make it to the tournament: Memphis, Duke, and Penn State. Okay. Actually, well, Penn State was 40, so not quite in the 30s. But anyway, point stands. You get into the 30s, you're pretty much in there. So, this is really, 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 really freaking exciting. The defense is going to be elite. The offense, it's going to make a big step forward. I mean, you and I like to sort of hedge our bets and say things like it seems like, and they're going to make a big step forward. All of these freshmen now, are they all going to be great? Probably not. Are they all going to make the same step forward? Probably not. But look, we know the biggest jump for players is freshman to sophomore year, just in general, right? And we have so many freshmen that it's like, okay, now, are they all going to make the same jump? Probably not. But it's like, we have so many talented guys. Are they enough of them going to make a big jump? And then you add in the fact that Smith and his staff have clearly tried to add experience, right? That is painfully is not the right word, but it's like, that is like super, super obvious right now that they have gone, you know what? We've got all these young guys. If we're going to make it to the tournament, we got to add experience. So they add Flowers, they add Aiken, and then they also add DeWolf, right? Like they add, now he's a walk-on, but he's also a guy who's got 70 some games of Division I experience, and then Tyrell Roberts, who's got, 60-ish games of Division II experience. So they've added guys who have a ton of experience to show these guys who are, in their second year, and they're going to improve, but they're still going to be young, show them the way. And I think this is absolutely the right path for the team to go.
Yeah. And I know maybe there's some, maybe from some Kook fans, like there's hesitance to like, we have such a great young core. You don't want to see older players come in and take their minutes, but I'm sorry, you have to try to win. Like you can't just hope that the players are going to get better and like waste season. Like Kyle Smith can't keep like having like rebuilding season after rebuilding season and hoping that, they're building to something.
Yeah, like maybe 3 or 4 years down the road it all comes together. Like
they obviously
no reason to wait for that.
They obviously looked at their schedule and they see 2 close losses to Arizona State, a close loss to Washington, a close loss to Arizona. If they get win, a close loss to Oregon State. If they get some of those wins, they're in the NIT this year. Like if they get like 2 or 3 of those wins, and so they see that like, okay, if this year with the 326th youngest team by experience based on minutes on KenPom, if they were able to do that well, to finish 78th on KenPom, to finish with a winning record, seven conference wins, like, wait, if they can improve a little bit, if they can, okay, maybe they can improve a little bit. Does that take us to the tournament? Maybe. But we still are losing some production. They probably knew they were losing Bonton. They probably knew they were losing Kuntz. So we're losing some guys. And we're going to have to replace that. We're going to, sorry, Siri's yelling at me. If they're going to replace that, like, just to replace that, and you can look and see, like Flowers and sorry, Aiken are replacements for Bonton and Kuntz, but they're guys that could be improvements on Bonton and Kuntz. And then you have improvement. Then you combine that with your improvements from your young guys, and it's not like they're going to lose so many minutes. If Yakumovsky plays, 60% of minutes instead of 90% of minutes, that's okay. That's fine. If Yakumovsky plays 50% of the minutes instead of, because otherwise we were coming in a season where you're having Yakumovsky probably be like a 75 to 80% minute guy if not for these additions. If we lose Bonton and don't add Flowers, like who's going to be the facilitator? So right. So they've added seniors in good spots. I think Groves would have been an amazing addition, and
sure.
From what we've heard, that ultimately came down to playing time for his brother, actually, because WSU is pretty loaded at where Jacob Groves would play. There's a lot of wings on the roster right now.
I mean, he's an out-and-out wing, so he'd be competing for playing time with Yakumovsky and Rodman and Bamba, and they would have been. It would have been tough sledding to get those minutes for sure.
Especially with his brother on the team, who would be probably playing almost a wing on offense at times, like at least in a 3-man front court. So anyway, that didn't work out. But I mean, adding Aiken was a nice consolation prize, and really going to make this defense even better. And I'm so excited about this roster and how they've built it in 3 recruiting classes. Or is it 4 at this point? I don't know, whatever. But yeah, 3 recruiting classes
it's
at this
3.
point. Yeah. How they've,
it's crazy.
I mean, the roster that Smith inherited had CJ Ellaby on it and CJ Ellaby on it. And you had Jeff Pollard and Kuntz. So Kuntz obviously was a contributor last year. Pollard was a contributor. But these are guys that wouldn't be like core guys on many other conference teams. Obviously, Ellaby would have been a starter on like any Pac-12 team.
Sure.
But any of the other guys, you know, Cannon and Skaggs and Robinson and Ahmed Ali and guys like that, you know, to go from that, or, you know, obviously they brought in Henson to try to do something, but he was, you know, kind of a one-trick guy, and they didn't bring him in, but he was already committed. But
they did convince him to stick
stay
with his commitment.
I mean, yeah.
So,
you know, and obviously he was a shooter, and they used him at times just to try to spark. But anyways,
little offense.
But just to go from that to like the roster that we're looking for next year, you can put the starting 5 up against almost any starting 5, you know, in the conference. And you know, just to have guys that are going to be NBA players like Noah Williams and F. Abagidi and Deshaun Jackson, like those guys are going to the NBA and they're going to be starting on the team next year. And Flowers potentially NBA player too. I mean, his size is a limitation, but I mean, Malachi Flynn isn't that big and he's in the NBA now. But you know, it's all about opportunity. But and then you add on like Yakumovsky, who knows with him? Like he's got the size, he's got the shooting ability. You know, Bamba has the athletic ability, and we've seen him display the scoring ability. Like there's just guys that either they're oozing with potential or they're already good in the terms of like with Williams, Abogidi, and Jackson. They're just already good Pac-12 players that they've added. And then you're talking about Rodman too. They add him, like just a great defensive player and a good 3-point shooter who's just like a nice piece to have, a hustle kid, like a hustle guy, like that just makes plays, and like and that would be a guy that would probably be like your number 2 scorer on this like team a couple years ago. Like honestly, your second best player on the team would be Rodman like a couple years ago, or like before, obviously not with like Franks and Ellaby, but maybe Rodman be your 3rd best player. Now he might be your like 7th best player. Like it's nuts, and just how they've been able to remake this roster, and truthfully, it wasn't. When we were excited about Smith, we weren't, and we've said this over and over again, we weren't anticipating like him bringing in just better players. We just thought he'd be a better coach. And he'd bring in maybe players that fit his system better, or fit a system that would be more successful in Pullman, and he would just be smarter about the way he does things. But they've just legit brought in good players, like just good young players. Yep. Now they're adding good experienced players. Like it's Bonton turned out to be like they absolutely needed him. That was a great addition, and it's just it's amazing how they've been able to identify talent. And we got a kid like Rosario who was limited so much by whatever was ailing him last year, and he's one of the biggest potential guys on the roster. And who knows, like he could make a big jump next year. We don't even know. Like he's one of the more athletic guys that we have. And so it's just nuts. And you think like guys like him and Bamba who could next year not contribute much, or they could just explode. Like you just don't know. And it's exciting. I know, like we were so much more excited to talk about this, and we're going to keep talking about it probably, but we were so much more excited to talk about this in spring football, obviously, because we've spent quite a lot more time on it. I'm fired up. I can't wait for basketball season to start, and this is the most exciting. This is the most excited I've been going into a basketball team season since like 07-08, after they had that surprise 06-07 jump. Like, so this is really, it maybe, I don't even remember I wasn't, we were excited about Clay, but it hadn't been such a drought from the tournament that we were like this excited about going to the tournament probably. But now you're just like, it's been 13 years and we are ready to be relevant in basketball again. And just a lot of players that are fun to watch and have so much more that they can do, and it's exciting, man. I'm rambling because I'm excited.
It is going to be so fun. I mean, I think that one of the things that I love about this roster is there's so much versatility. There's tons of ways they can match up with different people at different times. I mean, Kim Aiken can be, he could play the 4 if you want, right? So you could go with like sort of a small athletic lineup of, Abogidi at center and Aiken at the 4, and then, maybe Yakimovsky, Williams, and,
Aiken played, right? I mean, Aiken played the 4 at Eastern. That was his,
right.
And the 5 sometimes, right. but it's like
now playing the 4 at Eastern in the Big Sky is a little different than playing the 4 in the Pac-12.
But he played the 4 against Kansas.
But he can do it. But he can do it. He can do it. So he's he is going to be such a just kind of a Swiss Army knife guy. And you just look up and down the roster, and you've just got these guys who can do different things, and you can sort of mix and match. And what Kyle Smith has shown is he really is an expert at that, figuring out what guys do well, putting them in positions to do those things, and then letting them do their thing. And he's not afraid to have a guy play 20 minutes one night and 3 minutes the next if it doesn't quite fit. And I think it's a real testament to his coaching that he's created rosters where guys are okay with that, that they live with that. And they succeed with that. We do know that, so something that I had always assumed that now I'm thinking is actually not true is that guys who transfer in from other programs as super seniors are actually going to count against our 13 scholarships. So that means someone's got to go. So we'll see. We'll see who that is. I tend to think that it's maybe not going to be a guy currently on the roster simply because you would expect those guys to have gone by now if they were going to, that they would have announced and opened up. And I mean, at some point the musical chairs get scarce.
And the staff would have let them know that we're looking to add guys, and it may impact your ability to be on this team, play and be on this team.
And yet those guys are all still there.
Yep.
So that leads me to sort of logically think maybe Miles Rice is the guy who might be sort of the odd man out on this.
Unless we got a Taylor Rochester situation going on here. But
yeah, so he's
Marcus Capers, Taylor Rochester situation. But,
yes. So he's the freshman signee, kind of combo guard out of Georgia. Really nice, slick player. I love what I see from him. I mean, I can see what the staff really liked in him, but I can also see where adding a freshman, essentially, I say combo guard, but he's really kind of a point guard. Adding a freshman point guard to this mix is kind of,
we haven't even talked about.
That's a tough fit.
I mean, they have Jefferson Koulibaly, who they're very high on, and is still, hasn't even played a minute yet. So,
plus Roberts, plus Flowers, plus Noah Williams. They're plus Ryan Rapp. Like there's a real logjam of dudes at point guard /2. And I don't know, man. Like as a true freshman, and I get it. Like as a true freshman, you may not play much, but it's also like it's hard to see a real clear path forward to minutes there. So I don't know. Like that
unless
just seems
you
like
were
the
like
logical,
like a guaranteed lottery pick type level recruit.
Yes.
Then it'd be different.
Yes. So that seems like the logical conclusion that maybe he's the guy. Things have been real quiet about him, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there, but it's again, excitement is like, full throttle. Like it is just it's hard not to see how if they don't make the NCAA tournament, I don't know that I'm going to be heartbroken. Obviously that depends on kind of how it plays out, but just going into a season thinking, that the NCAA tournament is a real legitimate possibility in a program like ours where, that just has happened so few times. It's fun, man. It's super exciting, and I'm not taking it for granted because, this is special. Like you said, the big thing is they're just adding dudes who can play. I read a thing from John Wilner today, and we love to rip on John, who is actually a good dude. But he wrote in there, he was kind of like, which way is your basketball program trending? And said that he gave WSU the highest mark, right? That it was trending up with the highest mark that he had. And one thing he said was, well, Kyle Smith's done a great job recruiting guys for his system, and I'm like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Like you look are dudes on this up and down this roster that if you asked other coaches in the Pac-12 if they would take them, they absolutely 100%. Like, is there any coach in the conference that would turn down FA? Right? No. Is there any coach in the conference that turns down Deshaun or Andre Yakimovsky or Noah? Like, are you serious? Right? Like this isn't a system thing. This isn't a Tony Bennett thing. Like, and those guys could play. Like, I'm not denigrating those guys. They absolutely could play, and they proved it with professional careers and all that stuff. But that truly was system recruiting for the most part. This ain't that, man. These are dudes who can just play. Now, don't mistake recruiting guys to a system for Kyle Smith deploying them in ways they can be effective. Like, those are two different things. Right? Like Kyle Smith has shown in 2 years, he does he has some core beliefs. He has some core tenets, but he is very clearly willing to change those up if it fits the guys he's got. And we even saw it last year from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year to the end of the year. Beginning of the year, FA is our center, right?
Right.
Blocking shots everywhere. He's our 5, blah, blah, blah. Well, then all of a sudden Deshaun starts coming on and, well, geez, we've got these two big guys. Well, let's play them together. Right? And so then all of a sudden it's Jackson and Abigidi starting next to each other. Like, listen, Kyle Smith is savvy.
Yeah, what if I told you that Deshaun Jackson had a higher block rate in Pac-12 play than FA?
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Because all of a sudden FA is not standing under the basket for, 30 minutes, 25 minutes a game, and he's not blocking everything. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's just Kyle Smith is so just creative with the way that he handles his roster, the way he deploys his talent. And I think the real magic is that he gets his players to buy into that. And that's not an easy thing to do, right? To convince guys that you might play, 25, 30 minutes one night and you might play 8 minutes the next night. Like, you just don't know. And to keep everybody, rowing in the same direction. And that's special. Kyle Smith is special. He's not going to be here forever. He's just not. So let's just I am committed to enjoying this while I got it. And it is exciting and it is fun. And this year is going to be something else.
Yeah. All right. How many more months we got until that starts? Too long, like 6 months.
Dear God, till like November.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. 6.5 months. Roughly.
Damn it.
That's
all right.
But all right. So let's before we hop off here, let's cover what's been going on with some other teams. Women's basketball. This is obviously a few weeks ago, but we haven't talked about it. Crystal Ledger Walker is coming back. That's huge. They would not have had a point guard or any experience at point guard, save for maybe a grad transfer or something, or a transfer. So it's great to have her back. I think she can improve on what she did last year. Hopefully they bring in some, she gets some more help so that she doesn't have to play, 90% minutes. We definitely saw that wear on her. I'm sure, it's from the standpoint of, for Charlize, it's great to have her sister still around, I'm sure, and as her second year in a foreign country and everything. And I think nothing but good things. Obviously, you're returning basically the entire roster that made the NCAA tournament last year now. And so, and with many of them young and ready to improve. So, you're in a good spot. So excited about that. Real excited about Crystal coming back. That was fun. The video was great too. I'd recommend you go find her announcement video. Yeah. Love those New Zealand accents too. Those are just, everything sounds cool.
100%.
Or they're also great comedic accents, I will say. If you ever seen Fly the Conchords or What We Do in the Shadows, anything like that, great accents.
I have not thought of Flight of the Conchords in so long. That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's like all of a sudden I'm like transported back to thinking of Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah, and then funny thing, we haven't podcasted so long. Volleyball both made and got bounced out of the tournament.
I know.
They got. They got
game.
a great. They got a great. They got a great seed. They got a seeding, so they got to skip the first round in the tournament. So they're in the round of 32. They're playing an undefeated team in Western Kentucky.
Yes.
They fall behind 2 sets. They win the next 2, but then just run out of gas.
And they didn't just. By the way, they didn't just win the next 2. Like they pretty much dominated.
Yeah.
The next 2 sets. Like they sort of like all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, they figured it out. They've been off. I mean, they were off for what, like 2 weeks, right? Before the tournament.
Yep.
So they hadn't played. And you look at it and you go, okay, now they are rolling. They are gonna, they're curb stomping them now. Like, this is great. Moving on to the 5th set, and then that 5th set did not go great.
No.
It did not go great. I did see a lot of, tweets after it, like that's okay. Good job. Oh, I'm so proud of the way this team fought. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I have a hard time with that. I'm like, man, you had them. You had them. Yeah. You had them. And then those fifth sets, I will never understand why that fifth set is only 15 points. I'm just like, what? Are we tired? Are we out of shape? Like what? Like why can't we play a full fifth set? Like why can't we play to 25 on that last set like we do on the other ones? I don't, and so the answer that I got from, I think it was from Michael Preston, in Slack was, well, that's what the Olympics do. And I'm like, well, why do the Olympics do that? This seems stupid.
My guess is that it's seen as like a tiebreaker. Like the fifth set is a tiebreaker. Guess. And so
I don't know, man.
So yeah, like in tennis, if you finish six sets to 6, like I'm sorry, if you finish 6 games to 6 in a set,
right?
They don't like in every
sure, but they don't play less in the fifth. So the women only play 3 sets, right? The men play 5. The men don't play a shorter set in the 5th set. The women don't play a shorter set in the 3rd set. Like, why aren't we playing a full set?
Well, I'm just saying to decide the sets themselves, they changed the game to have a tiebreaker, unless it is Wimbledon. They have tiebreakers. Wimbledon they don't have 5th set tiebreakers. They will play until forever. But yeah. So I'm just saying, like, you're looking for an explanation, Jeff, but you just won't accept it. But that's my explanation.
I will not.
Is that they're saying, okay, if you truly want to win the match, you win 3 sets to 1. But if you don't, if it's tied, it's a tiebreaker.
Yeah,
the 5th set is a tiebreaker. So you got 10 less points.
You've only got 15 points to make your point. Get to it. Yeah, I don't know. It was a bummer. I don't know.
Just think of it this way, Jeff. If someone came in, think of any rule that you think is important in a sport that you follow a lot, and then you come and then someone who's only watched it, barely watched it at all, and is just rambling about it, and like, this is stupid.
This is some bullshit.
I don't know.
What's a rule okay, like that?
Maybe I don't know. Like, I don't know what a rule is like that, but like, I'm not going to think of one on top of my head. I'm just making fun of you because you don't know anything about volleyball, but you're willing to make fun of the rules.
It's true. I don't know shit about volleyball. I will say, okay, the one I hear is, so as soccer fans, we hear, why do they end in a draw? Right. So that's one we hear a lot. Right. Like that. So that's kind of a similar thing. Why do they end a draw, or why do they do penalty kicks at the end of a whatever? Why don't they do overtime? We hear those kinds of things. I guess maybe that's close.
Like, I don't know. Like, there's definitely like debate about the value of penalty kicks. There's not really debate in soccer circles about whether there should be draws or not. Right?
But is there there is if you're dealing with like my dad, who's like, Mr. America, and is like, we don't do ties in America. What are you talking about? But I don't know. Does anybody have a good reason why it's only 15? Other than just like philosophically,
I don't know.
Look at it as a tiebreaker.
How much research have you spent on this? Perhaps someone does.
Like 5 seconds.
Wow.
At least 5 seconds. Anyway, I know people were excited. They, I felt like, damn it, like they had such an opportunity, but very, as we've talked about before, very, very young team. Lots of freshmen. I mean, here we are talking about our basketball team maybe making the NCAA tournament when all these talented freshmen become sophomores. And here's the volleyball team with all these freshmen that are like, yeah, we got a top 16 seed in the NCAA tournament with all these freshmen. So it's pretty badass, man. Jen Greeny's done a great job.
Yeah, pretty great. I'm trying to look up a reason. 15 is a classic number in volleyball because that's what they used to go to before they implemented rally scoring, when it was only the serving team could score.
Right.
I think it's primarily to limit the duration of the matches. And the reason they do it in tournament, like it's basically a tournament rule because you're trying to limit, you're trying to schedule games all day, and so you're limiting the number of things.
That's like the lamest reason.
Is it?
Yes. Are we trying to figure out the most worthy victor, or are we trying to schedule tournaments?
I mean, how is 15 points and 20 like how are you worthy if you win to 15 and if you're not and not worthy if you win? How are you worthy if you win to 25 and not 15?
But how many times does a team get to 15 and then like in the previous 4 sets, how many times does a team that gets to 15 first actually end up not winning the set?
I don't know.
I don't know either, but it seems like it happens with reasonable regularity.
I would get.
You think so?
Yeah, I would bet it's a significant, like a 75 to 80% thing.
Ooh, that seems like a lot. I don't know. I wish I had the data, but I don't know anything. Just talking out of my ass now.
Yeah, and so volleyball, baseball has been kind of struggling since they hit some of the better teams on their conference. They had a great thrashing of Arizona, but unfortunately, unlike tournament soccer, they do not play aggregate scoring.
That'd be nice.
They do not do that. So WSU could not take its 19 runs it won by on Friday and apply those forward to the next 2 games. They ended up losing 2 of 3 to Arizona. They got swept by Arizona State, I want to say. Lost 2 of 3 to Oregon State. We talked about Oregon State games already. They got beat by Gonzaga, and then that game ended because of a gruesome injury. They did take 2 of 3 from Utah, and they lost 2 of 3 to Stanford after getting swept by Arizona State. So they, obviously baseball, play a lot of games. So they're sitting at 5-10 in conference play right now. I'm not sure. It seems like they would have to do quite a bit more to make postseason play.
Yeah. A lot more.
Yeah. So
a lot more, but positive moves. I mean, the offense is obviously, kind of come around a little bit. Kyle Manzardo. I saw something recently. He was ranked in like the top 25-ish of hitters that are eligible for this season's draft. So that's like super awesome for him and for the program.
So maybe maybe his last season here.
I'd be surprised if he came back. So, good for him. I know he's had a little bit of injuries, some niggling injuries. But it's a good thing. Program's on the right track. They obviously are figuring some things out. Pitching still, a pretty big weakness. And we knew that Brian Green's strength coming in from New Mexico State was developing hitters. That was kind of the big selling point on him. So now they got to get the pitching in order. And once they do, I think we're on the, obviously last year they didn't have a season really. So, really this is basically year 1 essentially. I'm looking forward to what year 2 brings next year.
Yeah, and then
even though this year's not over,
and then our
still watching this year.
A bummer for our premier program, soccer, missed the tournament for the first time since 2016.
Fuck. I was so mad about that.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't after they drew against UW. I kind of felt like they needed to win that one.
Yep.
And then they drew against Oregon too. Like those last 2 matches you had at home, you probably needed to at least get a win out of one of those.
Yeah, probably needed to win them both.
Yeah, and so they draw both, and they finish the season 6-3-3, 2-2-3 in conference. Just didn't have enough results. You look back at that, that first game against Utah, which was the one official conference game among the two, is that was a draw. Having 4 matches canceled in a row, you could look at them, and same with the volleyball team. Just the COVID cancellations really made things tough. They both were hit hard by COVID, and luckily it seems a lot of the players have been okay, and were able to return. But WSU is missing players, and obviously they expect to have Trinity Rodman, and they didn't have her, and so and she's been looking really good in the NWSL. Coming in,
yep.
I see a highlight from her every game.
Would have been a massive difference maker.
Yeah,
holy crap.
Yeah, she really would have been.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
But I mean, they took almost a month off.
Yep.
Because of COVID cancellations. They played that game you referenced, that second game against Utah, which they won, right? And then Arizona State canceled, Arizona canceled, Cal canceled, Stanford canceled, and then they had a non-conference game against Washington, and that was the game they lost 1-2 with the howler right at the gun, where it was kind of a rainy night and ball it kind of hits off the keeper's gloves right into the net. Not even right into the net, like didn't even make it to the net, I don't think. I think it basically sneaked across the line. And that really kind of seemed to be, the sort of like story of the season right there, is they lose that game to Washington, which Washington is having their best season in quite a while. They made the tournament. You beat Colorado barely in overtime. You get thrashed by UCLA. You get beat by USC. You beat Oregon State, but then, tie, draw to end the year. And just very, very tough to make a case that the team, deserved to be in the tournament, which again is such a major bummer. And, always fun to watch them play in the postseason, and they just didn't quite have it. And they're going to lose people too. They've got a couple of players who were drafted to the NWSL who played the season and then are going to, potentially join the NWSL next season. Makamai Gomez-Stevens is kind of the big one. She's a boss of the midfield. She's, presumably moving on. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's definitely a little bit of uncertainty going forward with the players. Not that we expect some sort of big drop off, but yeah, definitely a little bit of like uncertainty trying to put it together for next year.
When they signed Trinity Rodman, they can't have been. They must have thinking of it. This is someone that's going to play for us for 4 years. They weren't thinking this is someone who's never going to play for us. So
right.
So you lose a recruit like that, and just hopefully they can reload and do that. Yep. They obviously have some recruiting prowess.
Yep.
So
no doubt.
So hopefully we can see them come back and bounce back. I mean, they've just been good for so long that you expect it at this point.
Yeah. Like, it's hard. Like, I looked at this and went, oh, shit, they missed the tournament. Didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And when they lost to Washington, it was like, shit, I really didn't expect that. Like, that was frustrating. So, yeah, it was a challenging season for them, no doubt. They're not used to playing in the spring in Pullman, which, let's be honest, is a pretty shitty time for soccer. They had games.
They had to play.
They had games in the bubble.
Yeah, 4 or 5 games in the bubble.
Yeah, so they had games in the bubble. Played some games, on their home field, but just totally weird, totally unusual season. I'm not going to read too much into it, but at the same time, I don't really like the fact that Washington seems to be kind of getting their shit together, because we've sort of owned them for the last decade or so. And so I'm not a big fan of that idea, but at the same time, I'm also not hitting the panic button. So,
yeah. All right, man. I think that was all. That's it. That's all.
You think so?
Yeah, I think we did a good enough job.
I don't know about that. was probably a crap job.
Yeah.
But we definitely did it.
We talked about the basketball.
Whatever it was, we did it.
Yeah, we managed to spend most of the time on the men's basketball team, as we usually do.
Yes.
But yeah, so if you like what you hear, rate us 5 stars. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Tell a friend about us. You know, that's people. That's,
hell yeah.
That's I get most of my like new podcasts because like a friend tells me about it. You know, like and so. If you like it, just tell your other kook friends. Hey, listen to this. Listen to these idiots. They talk forever about God knows what.
Yes.
So rate us 5 stars. Do all that. You can follow me on Twitter at the Craig Powers. You can follow Jeff at Pod POD versus everyone. Pod versus everyone. I have my email. My Pod versus everyone email has been a ghost town recently, and I guess that's what happens when you don't record an episode for 3 weeks.
Yeah, probably.
But I would love to get emails. I love getting emails. Podcast vs everyone at gmail.com. Podcast versus everyone at gmail.com. Send us questions, comments. We're also still looking for shirt designs. If you have any shirt design ideas, let us know. I think that's it. That's all, Jeff. So
yeah.
Go Cougs.
So. Go Cougs. Black Lives Matter, Craig.
Black Lives Matter.